Chapter 5. Priorities. The one thing Franklin hated above all else was irony. Irony seemed to always find a way to turn his life upside down or to change things when he least expected it. It even managed to make his life weirder than it already was. Irony was ironic, really. For instance, he had just quit his job at Vlachtermat, a center of therapy for the supernatural and the interdimensional, and for the human beings who were on the verge of mental breakdowns because of the realization that one of those two things existed. He had found a job as a therapist at a regular mental health facility, and it was the last place on Earth he expected to meet a woman with 7 multiple personalities, amnesia, and the ability to rip HR-120s to shreds with her bare hands. Yes, irony was his greatest enemy, next to, perhaps, the robots that were trying to vaporize him. Them and the therapist with persuasion powers who was killing all of his old patients. Helena rode shotgun in Franklin's navy blue Ford Taurus as he turned up his windshield wipers and squinted to see the road through a vicious rainstorm. He planned to take her to Vlachtermat after his meeting with William. Perhaps the unexplained phenomena wing could help make sense of her newfound abilities. But he had to take care of one incredibly dangerous problem before the other, and right now he just hoped he wouldn't hit a light pole on his way to Croxon Club. Why is it that it always seems to rain when something dramatic and dangerous happens? Franklin asked aloud. You're agitated, Helena said from the passenger seat. Thanks for pointing that out. You struck me as such a calm man. Considering the kinds of people you deal with on a regular basis, I might have thought you would thrive under these circumstances. Robots aren't trying to kill you, said Franklin. Helena looked down at her hands. Franklin briefly looked over at her and thought he detected a hint of sadness. Somehow I don't think that would affect me in the same way, she said. Franklin sighed. A therapist being insensitive. Another irony. How did you know I was being attacked? Franklin asked her. I left a sweater in your office. The inpatient attendant wouldn't let me go after it until your sessions were over. It's a good thing you came when you did. I promise we'll find out what's happening to you. How are we going to do that? I can take you to Vlachtermat. They're pretty good at figuring out these things. But this isn't just about psychology anymore. I physically destroyed those robots. I shouldn't have been able to do that. You'd be surprised what they can do at Vlachtermat. A short time later, Franklin made a hard left off the road and drove toward a clump of trees. Helena glanced at him questioningly as they headed straight for the trees. Relax, said Franklin. We're here. Instead of crashing, they drove through a dimensional aperture disguised as the clump of trees, which led to Croxon Club. If Franklin hadn't been driving at a speed of 30 to 37 miles per hour, he would have smashed right into a tree trunk. Pocket dimension apertures were accessed by obscure conditions like these, so that people couldn't just wander in accidentally. Most people wouldn't have known what to do with themselves once they were there. Franklin wasn't certain if this was achieved through a magic spell or a very complex hologram, both of which existed and could be used for such a purpose, but Croxon was rich enough to afford both. They were now in a large parking lot in front of a brick building with flashing neon signs. The sky was completely clear. No rain, no clouds, not even stars. Franklin explained to Helena that Croxon kept a 5-acre artificial pocket dimension on his keychain, and that's where the dimensional aperture had transported them. Anyone in Abbott City who knew it was there was welcome, and no one who was unaware of the multiverse would wander in and find out about it the hard way. So we're smaller now? Helena asked. Technically. As soon as we go back through the aperture, we'll be our normal size again. So what if the owner accidentally smashes us? Franklin hadn't really thought about that before. I doubt that would happen. It wouldn't be good for business. A nightclub? You were talking about a nightclub? This isn't Vlachtermat. I have to take care of another problem before we can go there. Besides, Vlachtermat isn't open again until tomorrow. Helena folded her arms. You are the worst therapist I've ever known. Granted, you're the only one, but I'll bet I could pick up a phone book right now and find a better one. Franklin raised an eyebrow. Look, I'm sorry, but this is important. Pfft, whatever. You aren't Helena, are you? She laughed. Laura. You may not realize this, Dr. Bryce, but the rest of us are people too. We have needs, just like she does, and we want to get to the bottom of whatever the hell is going on just as much as she does, probably more. It might be easy for her to be calm and patient all the time. She's not watching everything from the sidelines. I want results, and I'm going to get them. Laura, please. Everything I'm doing is in your best interest. Oh yeah? Then what are we doing at a nightclub? Do you remember what Helena did to those robots back at the crazy house? I could do 3 times worse to you. Maybe 4 times worse. She was obviously nervous and afraid, but was trying to look tough. She was also right. If she had the mind to try and hurt him, Franklin almost certainly couldn't stop her. But he stood his ground. He thought the best way to deal with these other personalities was to make them respect him. If he could align his priorities with theirs, he might not be in immediate danger every time one of them took over. The facility I'm going to take you to has been infiltrated by a man with the ability to force people to do whatever he says. This man may have the ability to take over the city and more. We're here to meet someone who can help me remedy that situation. If I don't take care of that problem first, we'll never solve yours or anyone else's. Do you understand? Laura didn't say anything for a few minutes. Okay, that's a twist, she finally said. We'll do it your way. But I want you to remember something, Dr. Bryce. There are 6 more of us in here. Helena, for whatever reason, gets to have control of our body most of the time. Occasionally, one of us can get out, but she's stronger than us. We seem to be wired that way. But all 6 of us, and pay attention now, because this is the part where your skin goes all crawly and dramatic violin music plays in the background. All 6 of us can hear everything Helena hears. We can see everything she sees, taste everything she tastes, etc., etc. Which means anything you do to her, you do to us. So be careful, because you have no idea what we're capable of. Her eyes shut and slowly opened again. Helena was back in control. I'm sorry, said Helena. Some of the others are less patient than I am. Well, I am patient, Franklin said. I can handle them. I thought you were angry. With the robots, not with you. He smiled and she nodded, then stepped out of the car. Franklin followed, and they headed for the entrance to Croxon Club. When they entered, their ears were filled with the screeches of what some ungodly creature from some ungodly dimension called singing. It was more reminiscent of a high school fire alarm. Franklin inwardly cursed himself for scheduling this meeting here, and he doubly cursed himself for scheduling it during karaoke hour. Franklin, came a voice from behind them. He and Helena spun around to see William, who, judging by the half-empty glass of mustard-colored drink in his hand and the awkward and clumsy way he was walking, had already been there a while. "Isn't this music fantastic?" William cried over the screeching of whoever or whatever was on stage. It was an 8-foot-tall cucumber with no visible mouth. Franklin had never seen one before, and he couldn't tell where on its body the screeching could possibly be coming from. It was safe to say that it didn't need a microphone and wouldn't have been able to use one even if it had one. William would have agreed that it was horrendous had he not been drinking. Franklin had never seen William like this before, but it didn't seem entirely beneath him either. Franklin tried to ignore the mouthless creature, and he shook William's hand, which was more difficult than usual. William kept missing it, and Franklin finally grabbed it and held William steady on the 4th try. "William, what are you doing? We had an important meeting planned." William snickered and took a swig from his glass. "We're about to try and stop an extremely dangerous madman who has the ability to kill us both just by telling us to go throw ourselves down an elevator shaft, right?" "Yes." "Then what have I got to lose? If I'm leaping to my doom, might as well have a good time the night before." Franklin grabbed William's glass away from him as he tried to take another swig, and William gave him a resentful glare. "William, we aren't going to die," Franklin said, "as long as we get to work. Now be polite and introduce yourself. This is my friend, Helena Kathryn." William looked at her and he suddenly forgot all about his drink. He brushed his long blonde hair back with one hand and popped his fingers. He did his best Barry White impression. "Well, hello there," William said, and Franklin wished he had the luxury to pretend they didn't know each other. "You know, Franklin here's married. I'm not." Franklin shook his head, but it didn't faze Helena at all. She held out her hand as if William were a consummate professional. "I'm a patient of Dr. Bryce's," said Helena. William's interest in Helena vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "A patient? Franklin, you brought a mental patient here?" "William, please," said Franklin. "It's all right," said Helena. "It's a valid concern. You see, I have amnesia. I don't remember anything from before the last 6 months." "Oh," said William. "I guess that's different. I also have 6 other personalities in my head." William tore his glass out of Franklin's hands and took another drink. "We're dead. And I can tear the robots apart with my bare hands," said Helena. William suddenly appeared more sober. "Robots?" HR-120s, Franklin said. Oh, wait, you guys got attacked by HR-120s? That's right, said Franklin. And she can, yes, and they'll probably be sending more, so, wow, said William. Okay, never mind. The mental patient can stay. The three of them got a table as the screeching cucumber finally finished its song. Franklin started to breathe a sigh of relief, which he quickly took back as soon as he spotted the Quacksword twins taking the stage. Franklin pulled out a thick paperback book from the inside pocket of his trench coat and flipped to a chapter toward the middle. It was an interdimensional reference guide called the Nitsu Trivisknot. He had borrowed it from Lyra's personal collection. He used her books to look up interdimensional species' abilities, habits, and cultures when he couldn't get enough information from reading patients' minds. The Nitsu Trivisknot had the most information on telepathy and mind control. William, I need to ask you some questions so we can narrow down Groffman's powers. Does he require any tactile contact when using his powers? No, I don't think so. It seems like he just has to make eye contact. He must be telepathic, Franklin said. How do you figure? Asked William. How else could he have bypassed Gordon? Franklin had never been a powerful enough telepath to hide anything from the mind probe. Not that he would have tried, but more powerful telepaths could do things like trick a Landorn. If Groffman was telepathic, he could keep Gordon from knowing he had persuasion powers. Franklin flipped forward a few pages. I've got it. He's Threpnoidian. Threpnoidian? They make fantastic drinks and they have mind powers? Lucky ducks, said William. How can you be sure? Asked Helena. Is that the only race that uses persuasion through telepathy? It is now. There used to be several of them, Franklin said. What happened to them? Asked Helena. Franklin read on for a moment. They controlled each other to death. Apparently, races with this ability historically kill themselves off because it's impossible to enforce any laws. Unlike you, I tell you to go kill yourself. Someone doesn't like me, they tell me to go kill myself. If you're mentally stronger than me, you don't die and I do. Either way, we all end up killing each other. Surely at least some of those races invented morality, said Helena. You'd be surprised by how many haven't, William said. Some interdimensional races aren't that creative. Even the deeply moral and religious species haven't been able to fight off the temptation to kill people they don't like, Franklin said. According to this, it's just the nature of people with that ability. But then why haven't the Threpnoidians killed each other off? Helena asked. Their power only works on other races. They can't use it against each other. Makes sense, said William. So how do we stop Groffman from using it on us? Window cleaner, said Franklin. That doesn't make sense, William said. I know, but that's what it says. All we have to do is spray ourselves with window cleaner, and he won't be able to use his powers against us. So what's the plan? Asked William. We spray ourselves with window cleaner, we go to Vlachtermat, we find out why Groffman's doing what he's doing, and then we send him to Dimension 13.2. You do know, said William, that its entire population was killed off by a nuclear holocaust, right? Exactly. I think isolation is the best way to go. Of course, I'm not a Vlachtermat any longer, so if you have a better idea, then by all means. I don't understand, said Helena. Shouldn't Groffman be sent to the authorities in his own dimension to stand trial? This isn't the kind of crime the American government is fit to handle. No, absolutely not, William said. We can't send him back to his dimension because we don't have any way to open a portal that goes there, Franklin said. The Threpnoidians have ways of blocking that sort of thing. Most people think it's because they're afraid of people stealing their secret drink recipes.